So, in his last speech, Ben is going to get up here and he's going to say that our arguments are too general, overdetermined, etc., to be relevant. However, we have isolated a few structural ways that the Occupy movement specifically is necessarily structured regardless of its idealizations or its sort of best potential that necessarily make it something that insufficiently addresses issues of race and color specifically. The idea of 99% itself versus 1% means that there is no space for discussion of race issues, because the way that Occupy views its sort of being part of the 99% means that there's no space for articulating difference other than that of the economic difference between the 99% and the 1%. A predominantly white movement historically and today in the Occupy movement refuses to discuss issues of race as divisive or as something that is not relevant to their specific kind of political demand of economics specifically. Even a lot of the rhetoric of the affirmative that the ways that racial problems are structured are almost exclusively through the material ways that wealth is distributed is sort of the same rhetoric of the Occupy movement. That means that there is literally no possibility for a discussion of race issues specifically in the Occupy movement. So if you think about this, the sort of idealization of Occupy, which is what Ben and I were talking about in cross-examination, is that it would either be, sort of a book. We talked about these things. We know exactly how they work. We'll write out the perfect theory. Or it would be mere sort of redistribution, blindly ignoring the ways that things like policing structures, welfare policies, etc., are structured in ways that ignore and reify the ways that racial inequalities are maintained in our communities. I think Nick's speech proves about the Black Panthers, proves why the Occupy movement not only is insufficient to address needs of people of color, but is counterproductive because of the ways that movements can use the sort of ways that sort of frustration of the time and the economic crisis can be used to create parallel movements that take advantage of these kinds of attitudes, but do not operate in the sort of restricting and homogenizing idea of Occupy Wall Street. We could have a movement that demands the ways that local changes ought to be made in material conditions, that does not participate in the exclusive structures of Occupy, that says that there is no place for a specific articulation of a demand in the context of race issues. And we think that that is the problem that psychologically specifically constructs what can be sufficient or would not be sufficient for minority community.